Hello, hello, hello. So today I want to talk about 10 things Ray Peat was wrong about, or the 3-year journey that I went through with the Ray Peat diet. Now, for context, I actually came from the carnivore diet, and I basically came from the carnivore diet, and before I was in the carnivore diet, I was in the keto diet. And I did that from the keto diet I did for around a year, and the carnivore diet I did for around half a year. Keto diet was around September 2019 to September 2020, and the carnivore diet was September 2020 to March 2021. And both those diets were very, very low carb. I experienced all the negative side effects, of course, from a low carb diet for an extended period of time. Very high stress hormones, very manic behavior, very easy to lash out at people, very very low serotonin behavior. I know like Ray Peat is like, oh yeah, high serotonin behavior. Yeah, I'll get into that later on, but carnivore and keto, it seems like they do lower brain serotonin quite a bit, to the point where you just can't really listen to people anymore. You kind of just think that you're the only one who's right or whatever, and that's actually what happened to me quite a lot, actually, on that kind of diet. And March 2021 comes around, I'm starting to really feel the effects, and I'm also getting these like Ray Peat clips in my YouTube, right? So it's like, okay, this guy saying that saturated fat is good, but basically the thing that got me into Ray Peat, right, is this, like, he was, touting the stuff that I already knew at the time was good on carnivore, so like saturated fat, animal foods in general. I mean, Ray Peat was saying that that was good, and then he was also saying that the sugar was good as well, and that was like confusing me, but it was also kind of intriguing me as well. And that overlap was enough to break me out of the carnivore space, because I started, watching these Danny Roddy videos on YouTube. Because Danny Roddy had a very similar experience to me, where he had very bad, issues on the low carb diets. And the way that he explained it, it was just literally everything I was going through, and it was enough to convince me that low carb diets were not very good. So yeah, I basically just went full blown into like the Ray Peat way of eating per se. And a lot of people online will like to say that there is no such thing as a Ray Peat diet. There's only Ray Peat principles. The thing that they're missing here, though, is it's basically impossible to follow Ray Peat's principles if you don't eat something like, for example, dairy, because dairy is very high calcium, very low phosphate, and it'd be very hard to assemble a diet without adding in certain foods that align with Ray Peat's principles, right? And I basically started following his exact principles, and eating the foods that he recommended. I mean, he did recommend foods. I even emailed him and he told me what to eat. So when people say that there is no such thing as a Ray Peat diet, that's a bit of bullshit in my opinion. I do believe that there certainly was, and I think that it probably hurt a lot of people, possibly. I'll get into the reasons why I think that. So I don't want to spend all day going through my entire health journey or whatever. I already spent other videos doing that, and I did private them, but I could like put them in the link in the description if you want to actually go into it. But I just want to go over like the things that Ray Peat was wrong about, because I do believe that these are truly things that he was definitely wrong about, and I think it hurt me and probably a lot of other people in the process. So the first one is insoluble fiber is better than soluble. I do not believe this to be true at all, and the reason being, basically the whole reasoning behind this idea is the fact that insoluble fiber, it feeds a lot less. You can't ferment it at all, actually, compared to soluble fiber in the gut. And Ray Peat was saying that because you can't ferment it at all, it actually has a beneficial effect because it doesn't feed any bacteria, and something like the carrot salad actually acts like some kind of cleaning mechanism that scrapes the bacteria out of your gut or whatever, right? And a lot of the stuff that Ray Peat talks about, I do believe it's like correct, but then there's like other stuff that is just, I feel like it's just very hearsay, and like it's not really based in the scientific literature, for example, right? And I believe that these points are encompassing all of that. I mean, it's very like well known in the research that insoluble fiber causes like more IBS symptoms in sensitive people with their guts, for example, right? And maybe this is context dependent, possibly. Maybe if people didn't maybe the people who had very strong guts, for example, would tolerate the carrot salad quite well. And I actually did tolerate it well at the very beginning, but it kept getting worse. So also the other thing is soluble fiber, it actually binds to toxins a lot easier and promotes bowel movements a lot better than insoluble fiber. Oftentimes, if you eat too much insoluble fiber, it actually just ends up constipating you, which is quite interesting. So there's that. And, when you eat a lot of soluble fiber, there are chances that you could like become bloated from that, right? So, it's not like a clear like winner at the end of the day. There's like pros and cons for each of them. But the fact that Ray Peat was like touting on how insoluble fiber was like this miracle cure, it's just not the case at all. And he actually did backtrack when he was still alive. He ended up actually talking about how a lot of people who were doing the carrot salad end up having very bad gut issues, and that they should probably just do the mushrooms instead. You can look this up. It's online. I think it's on one of the Generative Energy podcasts or something. But he did say that, and he said it for a reason, because there are a lot of definitely a lot of people online who have issues with the carrot salad and it irritates their gut. So that's about it. Also, the other thing is, I was going to get into the weeds here, but if you eat raw carrots, usually you're not going to absorb the carotenoids in the carrots, like the beta carotene and all that kind of stuff. The problem is that if you eat carrot salad with coconut oil, the fat content in that carrot salad, it does something where the carotenoids are more easily like absorbable. I don't actually know how it works exactly, but there's something there that like I think it's with the saturated fat mixed with the carotenoids in the carrots. It makes the carotenoids a lot more absorbable. You can run into a lot more issues, especially with your liver and stuff like that. Also, like, of course, if you get too much beta carotene, it can accumulate in your skin and make your skin very orange looking. But that didn't happen to me, I don't think. I did have like some orange looking calluses for a while, actually. It's interesting. Yes, the second point is saturated fat is good. Now, this is a very, very nuanced thing that I'm going to talk about here. Saturated fat, first of all, does have its benefits. It's very hard to oxidize. In fact, it's almost impossible to oxidize under normal conditions. And what that means is that it's a very stable molecule in the body. So it's very anti-cancer, it's very anti-inflammation once it's in the right place in the body or whatever. The other issue with saturated fat, however, and this is all over the research, it strengthens the lipid rafts in the small intestine. And what this does is it makes the small intestine a lot more permeable. and it allows endotoxin to go through the bloodstream very easily, actually. So what you end up seeing in the literature is something called postprandial endotoxemia from saturated fat. And the issue with this is it can create low-grade inflammation and damage basically everything in your body. Because when you're under chronic inflammation, eventually your body will start to suffer. And you start to get like a puffy face, you'll find that you're not looking so good, and you're definitely not feeling good either. And it's just all in all not a very good thing. Sometimes I actually got like I get a lot of erythromelalgia symptoms from endotoxemia actually. And so I know that I'm having an endotoxin reaction. If I start to get red hands and feet, for example, that's when I know that the endotoxin has gone into my bloodstream. Another symptom of endotoxemia is just like histaminergic symptoms. So like hot flashes, for example, is another symptom, but that's also related to salicylate sensitivity, which you can also get on the Ray Peat principles if you eat too much honey and fruit, for example. Yes. Going on to the next point, white sugar is good. This is another nuanced thing because sugar in of itself is completely harmless. The molecule sucrose, half fructose, half glucose, completely harmless to the body. The body actually wants it. And you can find this actually in fruit, and fruit is completely healthy. There's no correlation to any disease with fruit in the research. Seems to be completely healthy. There is something going on online where, people are saying that fruit can worsen adrenal fatigue. I'm not quite sure about that. I think maybe if you're sensitive to adrenal issues and you eat fruit and it spikes your blood sugar too much, it could create some like crashing energy issues possibly for some people. But the majority of the research shows that it's actually quite healthy and beneficial for most people. The issue with white sugar comes in the fact that it also, like saturated fat, but in a different way, increases endotoxin. And with white sugar, it's even worse because it just like changes your gut bacteria kind of to like become more harmful. And it also increases the permeability in the small intestine. So you just end up getting like a slower drip of like endotoxin into your system, but then it's like more chronic as well. So you can really run into issues there as well, which is a bit of an issue. And, if you pair your sugar with other foods, it can make a hell of a difference in a good way. So if you eat some sugared apples, for example, you probably won't get any negative side effects. It's just when you eat white sugar by itself, you will probably run into these like endotoxemia symptoms, especially like maybe 30 minutes after you've eaten it. But it does depend on the individual at the end of the day and how damaged their gut is and how good their gut is, for example. But overall, I would definitely be wary of just eating plain white sugar every day. I don't think that's healthy at all, and I think you can definitely run yourself into a huge gut problem and later on down the line, a huge health problem from your gut problem, right? So that's just what I had to say there. Fourth point, eating beef liver is good. This is the most, this is the thing that I disagree with Ray on the most, because I went through a hell of a fucking trip eating beef liver and getting damaged from beef liver galore. I do believe that beef liver is probably one of the most toxic foods you can probably eat, to be honest. Obviously, if you have a grass-finished cow and it's eating a very clean diet and it's not getting any toxicities, you could probably eat some beef liver maybe once a month. But once a week is even pushing it too much, in my opinion. The reason being is even if the beef liver is well sourced, you're always going to get high levels of vitamin A and copper in the beef liver, right? And the reason why that's an issue is because vitamin A and copper both accumulate very easily in the body. And I believe that actually that a lot of issues that people are running into, a lot of long-term Peters, for example, the reason why they're running into issues is because a lot of the foods that Ray Peat recommends, oysters, beef liver, foods high in copper, high in fat-soluble vitamins, these things accumulate over time, right? And you can eventually just run yourself into the road if you just keep going, right? So my recommendation is to really cut back on, or be wary of fat-soluble foods with high fat-soluble vitamin content, and also high copper as well, because it's a lot easier to become toxic in these things nowadays than it is to be deficient in them. So, trying to be deficient in them could actually probably lead to a net benefit in health, in my opinion. Not to mention, there's other toxicities in beef liver as well, like cadmium, for example, and also lead. It really depends on, how toxic the cow was when it was still alive. But even if it was grass finished, I still wouldn't recommend it. You could still overload on the vitamin A, for example. However, there are benefits to eating beef liver. I'm not denying that. It's a highly nutritious organ. It's just a very double-edged sword if you go all the way with it, right? And that's actually exactly what I did. And I did that because Ray Peat didn't warn people enough about the dangers of beef liver, right? So that's all I have to say there. Vitamin D supplements are good. I was doing more research into this, and the research is very mixed. It seems to really depend on a lot of other issues. I got some comments of people talking about Chris Masterjohn and how vitamin A could potentially affect vitamin D metabolism and all that kind of stuff. I'm not very certain on the specifics. I do, however, think that I have this intuition or this feeling deep inside that vitamin D3, cholecalciferol, if it's low, it's probably a liver issue. The reason why I say that is because cholecalciferol is produced in the liver, right? So it would make sense that if you're having a liver issue, the vitamin D3 levels in the blood would probably decline. It kind of reminds me of people taking T3 and then their serum copper increases. Also, serum copper can increase with inflammation in the body as well, but there is, I guess, research showing that if you consume T3, it can actually regenerate the liver, and the liver is the thing that produces ceruloplasmin, so then that increases your serum copper. It could definitely be the same thing with vitamin D3, for example. And me personally, I've had incredibly bad reactions to vitamin D3 supplements. Weird heart issues, out of the blue, very peculiar. Usually I can feel when some irregular heartbeat is coming, like a PVC, I can feel it. With the vitamin D3 supplements that I've taken, 5000 IU, it's it comes on suddenly. It's like supraventricular tachycardia or something, right? It's like NSVT, non-sustained supraventricular tachycardia. I'll just have a run of it, and it'll be out of the blue. I was like, what the fuck was that, So I'm kind of wary on the vitamin D supplements. I think it's very complex, though. I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater on this one. There could be some benefit, but definitely context dependent, I think. Next point, dairy is good. I think Ray's overemphasis on dairy being a superfood has definitely hurt more people than it's helped. The reason why I say that is because there are a lot more people than you think who have issues with dairy proteins and issues with lactose intolerance from having a bad gut. And just including dairy into your diet will probably just make everything worse. especially at the beginning. I understand that it's a more pro-metabolic food. It's high in calcium, for example. I understand it has these benefits, but from a practicality standpoint, from my own experience, it's like, at the end of the day, the cons drastically outweigh the pros, right, with dairy. And I felt just a lot better when I got rid of it in my diet. Also, I think it's worth pointing out that with dairy, it's very hard to get dairy that doesn't have a lot of fat in it. And I do believe that we're living in a culture and society nowadays where the food quality is so bad that if you do eat these animal fats, you're most likely getting a lot of these fat-soluble toxins in them, right? So I just wouldn't eat dairy that often. Obviously, see how you feel with it, but very cautious. Be very cautious with it. If things are going bad, that's the first thing you need to cut out. Trust me. Next point. Copper isn't a problem. This is a big one. Ray Peat actually once advocated putting a copper penny in sparkling water with aspirin and drinking it. He was incredibly pro-copper, incredibly anti-iron, okay? This is a huge fucking problem. I honestly think this is the biggest mistake that Ray Peat has ever made in his entire life. I think the fact that he didn't emphasize the dangers of copper was a huge, huge mistake. Copper, from the research that I've done, is implicated in almost every mental illness, especially anxiety, schizophrenia, and bipolar disorder, right? Also, it's implicated with autism and all these other kinds of things. So, increasing copper in your diet will only eventually lead to issues because it's a highly reactive molecule. It's a highly reactive element. There's a reason. The reason why copper is so conductive. Conductivity is based on free electrons on the atom. Copper has the most, it's up there. I think some other elements are more. But it has a lot of free electrons. The issue with that is it makes it highly reactive in the body, creating ROS, reactive oxygen species, which is like free electrons crashing into shit, right? And basically, if you overaccumulate copper from your diet, the liver gets overloaded, and the brain gets overloaded, and also your fat cells get overloaded. Anywhere where there's like fat, or I guess the liver also has it as well. The issue with that is once your liver is tanked from all that copper, it's not going to be able to produce the carrying protein for it, which is ceruloplasmin. And when ceruloplasmin declines, the copper gets locked into the tissues of the body, and your serum copper drastically decreases. There was a study that I saw where people who had the worst health outcomes in the hospital had the lowest levels of serum copper. So there is a correlation between that and health outcomes, right? My serum copper is incredibly low. It actually got lower on this low vitamin A diet, but I was eating like butter beans and stuff, which are very high in copper, so that was also a problem as well. Also, serum copper could increase when there's like more inflammation, so that's another aspect that you have to like worry about, I guess. But the thing that I wanted to say about this is the Peat Principles Ray Peat diet is a very good diet to accumulate copper, because you're getting excessive amounts of vitamin A and you're also getting copper. The vitamin A, if you get too much of it, it increases the aldehyde burden in the liver, overdoing ALDH2 in the liver, which is one of the detox pathways for, I think, acetaldehyde and retinaldehyde. And when that happens, the copper can't get detoxified properly, and then the liver stops producing bile, and then you get all these gut issues because you have no bile, and you can't get rid of the toxins, and you just accumulate faster and faster, become more and more toxic, right? So you can definitely run into all these issues. Let's see. The thyroid is the most important health indicator. Very fast point. I think the thyroid is very important. However, I think the liver is on the higher echelon on that one. Male pattern hair loss is a metabolic disorder. This is also a point that's hurting a lot of young men. A lot of young males will actually go onto the Ray Peat diet to fix their hair. Because of the videos that Danny Roddy has posted and the things that Ray Peat has said about hair loss being a metabolic issue. From my own research, it seems to be strongly genetic. I don't really know what to say there. I don't want to go too much into it. You can do your own research into this. However, I will say the hair loss that Danny Roddy and all these other people are talking about that's related to thyroid, it is a real form of hair loss. It's more like alopecia, thinning everywhere kind of hair loss. I actually had that on carnivore, actually. Completely different to male pattern hair loss. There's different kinds of hair loss, and I think that's where a lot of people can get confused in this. So yeah, that's about it that I wanted to say there. And the last point, muscle meat is bad. That's another point that I disagree with Ray on, right? Muscle meat is very high in zinc. It's actually very good food to eat. It's a very balancing food in the diet. And the fact that Ray Peat, demonized muscle meat and beef mince and all these kinds of things so badly, I don't think that, was giving a service to anyone. So by all means include these things in your diet. There is research showing that these amino acids are slightly inflammatory, and phosphate could create some issues in people, but the zinc is so beneficial to people. I actually think it could outweigh the cons in it, from my own experience. Yeah, anyways, that's about it, guys. I just wanted to be quick with this, but let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Alright, peace out.